For a second day, I am so grateful to be here with soldier turned messenger. U.S. Army Staff Sergeant Shilo Harris, retired, is here from Texas. He is the author of Steel Will, My Journey Through Hell to Become the Man I Was Meant to Be. This is written with Robin Overby Cox, that's a woman, with a lot of military background. And she says this is the story of what it takes to make a man, break a man, and make him once again. So good to be able to chat more about an incredible journey, Shilo. Thank you so much for writing this story. I'm going to say again, the guys were all just kind of hanging around here because this is, I have to say, the best, the most detailed, and the most graphic insight into what really happens over there. What it's really like to be a soldier. You've got a whole glossary at the beginning just of all the terms from AK-47, C4, plastic explosives, on and on and on. I have been educated, and I definitely have more empathy. Not just for the hard things, but I think I understand better than ever before the band of brothers. The thing, you never seemingly questioned what is the value of this? You were experiencing the value of serving your country and serving with other men. That's what came through to me. Am I right?
Yes, absolutely.
Is that the heart?
Yeah, it was all from the heart. It was Robin, she really felt, you know, with her military background and the service that her family had, her husband or her brother, her father, you know, that this was an important story for her as well. So, you know, when we started the journey, we wanted to save a life or lead service members out of the darkness into the light and hopefully save some lives. And you mentioned the descriptions, and I think the best way for people to understand how to help is first understand who they're supposed to be helping. And that's why we offered, you know, the glossary so they could understand the acronyms and understand exactly what we was talking about, so they would have a clear understanding of what these servicemen, men and women, are experiencing in combat.
You've had some Vietnam war vets express appreciation for what you put on paper.
Yes, ma'am. Vietnam veterans and their families. You know, the Vietnam era, you know, these men and women, they didn't come back and talk about their service. They wasn't welcome home the same way that we were. And I can say that there has been family members contact me and thank me because they can understand their father, their mother better because they didn't talk about it. Mm-hmm. And the kids just grew up, you know, just not understanding.
Why is daddy like this? And why?
Exactly.
Post-traumatic stress, a huge deal. Well, I alluded yesterday to the first third of the book, which it's almost another story. It's your early journey. And I said that, you know, you took into married life and into this war experience a lot of wounds from a childhood that, quite frankly, although I have not watched the series, if you've seen Breaking Bad, that was a little bit your childhood. Your dad ended up in prison for drug dealing.
Yes, ma'am.
Take us back to the fishing days and the tackle shop and your childhood.
Well, I can tell you that it was pretty wild. I first want to say that I love my father, and he's probably one of the reasons that I'm alive today is because he raised me tough. But, you know, I feel like I've lived in a war my entire life. He was never, ever out of Vietnam. You know, he brought his pain back. And I've talked about my scars being a blessing. My father's scars weren't visible. I've learned a lot from him, you know, of sometimes what not to do. Clearly, you know, what not to do in many cases, but he's taught me how to be a strong man. And he, believe it or not, he had a lot of convictions and he had a foundation of faith. It was just, he had such an inner turmoil that it was extremely hard for him to
live it out.
Exactly, you know, and so I'm really fortunate in a way to have that experience so that way I can help others that may have experienced that same thing. But from the time I was 12 years old, I was working like a man. You know, I was working daylight till dark, and at many times I was out there you know, trying to go to school and working, and school and working, and it was just a hard juggle.
Talk about the work. What were you doing?
Well, we did a lot of stuff. You know, and my dad, we had the tackle store, you know, the bait store, and it was tire shop, car detailing. So we had like a multi-station store. So, you know, I had a little experience in everything, you know, minor mechanic work. We did just a lot of everything. Tree trimming, if the neighbors needed their trees trimmed, you know, he looked at that as an opportunity to make a few extra dollars. So, you know, there was never really any down days. It was 7 days a week, we was usually doing something. And it was just a family business. It was a family unit. But, you know.
A lot of drinking.
A lot of drinking. And as it seemed like once he got injured in an oil field accident. And with that injury, I think he realized his mortality. And, you know, even though he experienced a lot of loss in Vietnam, he told me his story one time, and that was it. And it was very dark. He had a lot of loss. He experienced injuries himself. And I think that when he got injured in the oil field, it brought a lot of that back. It brought all that pain back. And that's when we started going downhill.
Your mom at some point here said, get out while you can. And that's when you thought you'd join the Army.
It was actually a little later.
Was it?
Yeah, it was a little later. When my mom told me to get out, she told me, you know, I think I was fresh out of high school, and she was like, you got to get out of here. You got to make your path. And during those, you know, few years prior to the military, I joined at 27. So I wasn't exactly a young pup when I joined the military, but I felt like it was the right thing to do after 9/11/2001.
You don't mind me backtracking a little bit? Do you mind?
Say it one more time.
Well, you did enlist and had a little celebration.
Yes. Oh yeah, that's right.
You don't mind me mentioning.
Yeah. I see what you're talking about now.
And that party got cut short when you were pulled over for drinking under the influence.
Yes.
And then they didn't want you.
Yes, ma'am.
And so that explains the long delay, and you had a second chance after 9/11.
That's right.
I'm just trying to illustrate the confusion, the turmoil, much more in the first part of this book of a life that just didn't seem to have the foundation it needed.
Right. Well, that's right. You're talking about the almost enlisted. Yes, ma'am. After my mom told me to get out, I did. I went and I tried to enlist in the military, and I got pulled over and got a drinking and driving ticket. Unfortunately, you know, the military said, I don't need you. We're not going to take you in. You know, the case was later dismissed. You know, I worked it off, and I don't think I was ever, at that point, I was really trying to change my life and be a better person. And when I did actually get into the military, it was even more so. The military changed my life for the better. And I was proud to serve, and of course I became a better man. And then of course through my injuries, I've become even a better man. You know, pain it comes with its own humility, and clearly I got to know God a lot better because I prayed a lot. You know, I was like, why am I here? Why me? Why am not I the one that survived? You know, what is your plan for me? Why do I have all these scars? And you know, so there was a lot of questions that I feel are answered. A lot of them have been answered.
We better give credit to a big part of the answer, your wonderful wife, Catherine. When you met her, she tried to get you to go to church.
Yeah.
I'm going back a few years, I know.
Yeah.
But she has been God's gift through it all. When you were injured, she flew immediately to Germany. Despite your hearing loss, you said you could hear her voice through that coma. You felt her comfort. And I love you say in the book, getting called Grandpa is music to my nubs. Tell us about your family today.
Well, I have 5 kids. My oldest one is 22, and he's married, and they have a little girl, so I'm a granddad. At first, I wasn't real sure how to take being a young grandfather, but I love that little girl, and it's not about me. You know, they've done the right thing, and they're doing really well. I have you know 3. Well, my daughter's almost a teen. She's 11. She thinks she's 14 or 15 now.
Of course.
My youngest one is 4 years old, and he hasn't seen me any other way. You know, he was, after the recovery process, you know, my wife and I decided to have another child, and he's kind of our comic relief. So everybody's a huge blessing, but my wife, you know, she's the one that's had the faith. She's the faith. She's the one that's had the foundation. You know, they were raised in the Baptist church. You know, they went to church every Sunday, and we worked every Sunday. We didn't go to church. So when I first approached my wife with my whole Don Juan act, and she was like, "If you want to date me, I'll see you at the Baptist church." And I was like, "Well, yeah." But I felt like it was a journey worth walking. So, you know, my wife and I did go to church, and I did feel like all eyes on me. That first day, the preacher, he was talking right at me. Brother John, I know he will. He probably seen me come through the front door and was like, "I got to talk to that guy." And he did, and he changed my life. My wife changed my life. I'm very fortunate to have the family I have.
And that you took into hell, into this whole experience in Iraq. And now the Lord is your motivation for really building bridges to broken hearts. That's your mission. What would you like to say to us who have very little experience with the reality of war, with the fallout for soldiers and families? I mean, I'll tell you, you say it in the book, but I just want to give you this last minute to speak to those watching. What do we need to know?
If you're a service member watching this episode, I encourage the service members to get the help that they need. And I say this, I know that, you know, we have a lot of Canadian service members also. I've worked with some of the Canadian service members down in San Antonio. They come down there for medical training, and I know that we have, and then now we're looking at going to combat again. And this is going to be highly stressful for, you know, both of our countries and both of our military forces. So, you know, I encourage you as veterans and as service members, don't be afraid to ask for help. And if you're a civilian, or if you have family members that are serving, make sure that you know how to help them. You know, this book will give you a great insight as to what a service member goes through. And, you know, we do talk a lot about the PTSD. The PTSD is real. I don't even want to fathom, you know, how many suicides that we've experienced. But I know not long ago, the average suicide rate was 22 suicides a day for service members. 22 suicides a day was the average. That is unreal. We've lost so many lives downrange that we should not lose not one service member back on our home turf. So if you're a service member, get the help you need. If you're a civilian, help these service members understand what they're going through, and offer them just a helping hand. You know, offer them to have a conversation, because suicide is not the answer.
Well, you've provided a conversation here, and so much more. So many connections. Help a hero, just one of so many. Shilo, thank you for trusting God through so much hardship, and give your wife a hug for us.
I will.
Special woman.
Thank you.
Steel Will, my journey through hell to become the man I was meant to be. I hope you've been encouraged.